Hello again, and welcome. This is Michael Pizzolla, and I'd like to welcome you to the 2014 Preakness Stakes edition of the Value Capping Rant. In this video, I would like to share with you the insights that value capping brings to the analysis of the Preakness Stakes. And in doing so, I'll be using the software Blackmagic Ultimate Handicapper. I'll also be taking a quick look at the Post Time Daily. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Pizzolla. I am author of the best-selling book Handicapping Magic, co-author of the classic Pace Makes the Race. I'm credited with being the creator and inventor of the original online racing form. I am the publisher of Post Time Daily, which is a great online past performance. You can check out all the details at www.posttimedaily.com. And I'm also the creator of Blackmagic Ultimate Handicapper software. And that's the software I will be using to take apart the Preakness Stakes for 2014. And I do that because that's the software I use day in and day out for my work in finding good value investments. So first off, I'd like to thank those of you who wrote and sent me messages about how wonderful it was that Blackmagic had California Chrome right on top in the Kentucky Derby. And this is what the screen looked like if you look on the past rants, or if you look on YouTube or whatever, you'll see that that was so. And you know, it seems to many like, oh, wow, that's great. You picked that horse, and the Blackmagic software picked that horse out of all of the 20 horses that were going at Colts, you know, and it was right on top, and it was in bold, and it had a line under it, and all that stuff. It's great. Well, you know, sorry, but when you you use a sophisticated tool like Blackmagic Ultimate Handicapper, you get used to seeing a lot of winners on top. That does not mean that that's the value investment in the race. I did not think, certainly did not think, in that 20-horse field, the horse was worth an investment at 5-2. Now, it looked like a really good thing about halfway down the stretch, didn't it? I made my investment on General A-Rod because it was second on the line, had a lot of good things going for it, and at 30-1, I watched as it finished 11th. So with that as a background, but anyway, thank you. Yes, the real challenge with handicapping software is to get a balance. You know, I think anyone, if they just use conventional factors, can put all short prices on top. Anyone, if they just use very contrarian factors, can just put long shots on top. It's a real skill and a balancing act to get a good mix of price and short price horses. It should be to no one's surprise that Blackmagic puts the Kentucky Derby winner, California Chrome, on top in the Preakness Stakes. Now, this is an unusual Preakness for a number of reasons. The first, usually in the Preakness, you get a lot of colts who just came out of running in the Kentucky Derby to try their hand at the Preakness. Interestingly enough, only 2 other horses besides California Chrome will be running. And that is the 2 General A-Rod, the colt that I bet in the Derby, who finished 11th, and the 10 Ride On Curlin, who finished 7th in the Derby. And, you know, you think, well, what about the other, the other horses, that the long shot who finished 2nd, and, Wicked Strong and Danza and all of those, where are they? Well, for whatever reason, they're not running. Okay, which is, I guess it's interesting. Now, I think it's a natural tendency. We're all, lovers of this great game. And, there's a tendency. Look, I bet on General A-Rod in the Kentucky Derby. Am I surprised that the colt ran into trouble? No. There were 20 horses in the race, or colts in the race. And so it's interesting that two colts, Right on Curlin and General A-Rod, who finished 7th and 11th in the Derby, made the trip to Pimlico. Very interesting. I also note that California Chrome is 3 to 5 in the morning line. No surprise there. Social Inclusion is second on the line, and the bold means it's the fulcrum horse. That's the horse with the fastest second call time out of the last race, with some other conditions that I explain in the book Handicapping Magic, but it's the fulcrum. California Chrome was the fulcrum in the Kentucky Derby. Social Inclusion finished third in the Wood Memorial. Now, the winner of the Wood Memorial was Wicked Strong, who finished 4th in the Derby. It's not here. And then we go third down in the line, and we find General A-Rod. Again, right up there. Now, one thing that is makes this Preakness a little easier to analyze, due to the fact that there are only 3 of the colts returning from the Derby, is that the numbers from the Derby, there are advanced speed figures in it, but pace figures when you get past a mile and 3/16 are not that reliable. So I don't make pace figures for mile and a quarter and beyond. So typically when you're looking at the Preakness, you're not looking, or I don't look in my methodology, at the exact numbers from the Derby, but I look at the dynamics of what's going on. Oh, and I want to point something out to you. You know, you heard all of these, or if you've been keeping up with this, people are going into hysterics about how California Chrome really ran such a terrible Derby, and he had such a tremendous number in the Santa Anita Derby, and then ran this terrible number in the Derby, and therefore all these three-year-old colts in this crop are not very good. Well, maybe, I don't know, just maybe, and I want to say this without causing a whole lot of controversy, but maybe one of those numbers were off. Because if you look at the advanced speed figures for the last 3 races, California Chrome ran a 96, a 92, and 95. Okay. That's the numbers that are produced, and they're right in the Post-Time Daily as well as Black Magic. The Black Magic numbers, the pace numbers that California Chrome, and again, I don't have one for the Kentucky Derby, but the last 3 before the Derby were 155.6, 157.7, 157. I mean, pretty darn consistent. So I think there's much ado about these numbers. The real issue is finding value, and let's do that. And by the way, there is the usual musical jockey chairs that happens. I guess Joel Rosario, who won last year the Kentucky Derby in 2013 with Orb, he rode General A-Rod, and yeah, he got steadied and he got in tight and so forth. I would have liked to have seen him got a cleaner trip. He's now going to be riding Right on Curlin. The mount on General A-Rod will go to Castellano, who rode General A-Rod in the Fountain of Youth and just missed in that race. And I guess the connections of Right on Curlin were not pleased with the ride that Calvin Borel gave. So that's why Joel Rosario is riding Right on Curlin, and Borel is riding the filly Rio Antonia. Boy, it just makes your head swim trying to figure all of that out. But let's take a look at the summary grid, and you'll notice that, first of all, we only have 10 colts with whom to deal. Now, having said that, this red line indicates the random line. There are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 horses out of the 10 above random. Okay, there is a gap underneath California Chrome to be expected. There is another gap under the 2 and the 8, Social Inclusion and General A-Rod. That's where I would be looking. If I just look, now, do I think California Chrome is unbeatable? No. It's top on the line, but it's not overwhelming. It's 9-2 in my odds line. Social Inclusion's 5-1. General A-Rod is 6-1. Then there's a little gap down. Just looking on price and looking on patterns, General A-Rod, 6-1 on the odds line. Contention, what the public should do with it, mid to high. The morning line is 15-1. I thought 30-1 was a good shot in the Derby. It's also got something called a Type 1 and Type 2, as well as an Escal, which is a stretch gain after a loss. So this is a colt with some stuff going for it. The Type 1 indicates a good finish second back and a not so good finish in the top race. There are some other qualifications and tighteners on that. But what's interesting to me is that this colt kind of dropped back a little bit in positions between the first and second calls from 14 to 16, and then dropped back in lengths between the second call and the stretch from 8 lengths to 14, and then made a move forward. And that kind of gain in the stretch after losing the earlier parts of the race can sometimes be indicative, with a better trip now, of an improved performance next out. I'd like to take a quick look with you at the track profiles. Now, not surprisingly, there aren't many races run at 1 mile and 3/16, so we're going to go way back and see if we can see a couple of past Preaknesses in the track profile. And we see the 2013 Preakness and the 2012 Preakness. And if you'll notice, their energy are both 50.89 and 50.7. There's also the Pimlico Special ran last year at 50.09. Let me make a quick translation. That's very late. Those are late running energy expenditure. The percentage is a ratio between how fast they ran to the second call compared to how fast they ran or how much energy they expended over the entire race. Explaining the mathematics behind it would take me quite a while, but what you need to know is, at least in just the past Preakness stakes, it tends to favor colts who come from a little from off the pace, but definitely who expend their energy late. Now, what's interesting in this edition of the Preakness Stakes is that the race comes up unpressured. And if we look at acupressure, the colt that owns both the first and second call is Social Inclusion. This is not much of a surprise if you look at his past performances. He's always been on the lead in the first. He's owned the first and second calls. So I think that's going to be a very serious part of the pace. We've got Bayern in the race, and Bayern was DQ'd last time from the Derby trial. Rosie Napravnik won the race, just nosed out the other colt, and so Bayern's going to be part of the. Looks like it'll be part of the pace as well. So, as far as a win investment, if I get a good price, you may call this stubborn or what, but I'll take another shot with General A-Rod. I mean, it's got a lot of very nice things going for it. If I want to look at some numbers, it's got the top primary pace in the field from that Gulfstream Mile. Now, that number is going to show up because the Gulfstream Mile tends to have some early, exaggerate the early fractions a little bit. One thing that's interesting to me, so these odds are set based on this unpressured. And so the odds bias is set to early. If we say, well, geez, the track seems to, at 1 mile and 3/16, favor late horses. What if we were to set it up as late? We still see Social Inclusion up there. California Chrome, of course. We see Dynamic Impact. But a long shot shows up, and that's the 7 Kid Cruise, which is really interesting. If you look at its late fractions, 96, that's a very strong late fraction. And if you look at what it did in its last 2 races, it made these enormous late moves. Now, the one in the at Laurel on March 8th, it closed from dead last, 14.5 lengths back to win. And in the Federico Tessio, I think, April 19th, although it only closed from 5th, next to last, to win, the numerical value of that late fraction was tremendous. And interestingly, those were on very, very, very slow paces, 116 and 115. I would imagine the pace tomorrow is going to be more like 111 and change, 112, somewhere in that. So it's not going to see that late a pace, but I think I would use Kid Cruise in the exotics because I think it can close into the exotics. Okay, I'm going to take us back to going back to early and setting up by odds so you can see how it comes out of the box. So as far as the betting strategy, again, a perfectly good call to say California Chrome is not worth betting at the price, not worth betting against. As a racing fan, I think it would be great for the game to see a Triple Crown winner. I've seen the last three in person. Secretariat in 73, Slew in 77, and Affirmed in 78. So I would love for there to be a Triple Crown. As far as a betting proposition, don't want to bet them. Don't really want to bet against them because it's a very strong colt. If I'm looking and I get a decent price on General A-Rod, yeah, sure. What odds would I take, you might ask? I'd need 12 to 1 and up. I think it's a good value investment at that. As far as exotics, I will probably use Social Inclusion being the fulcrum and second on the line. I will put in that 7-horse Kid Cruise, even though he's way down, just because of the late tendency of the track, and he's shown very late runs in his last 2 races, looking to pick up a part of the exotic. Of course, any exotic that uses California Chrome, and if California Chrome gets first or second, you're not going to get very well compensated. So you have to take that into account as well. So that's it. It's actually a pretty simple Preakness from the point of view of value capping. California Chrome is a very strong colt. Obviously, Black Magic puts it on top. The morning line maker makes it odds on. Social Inclusion, the second morning line favorite, is also second on the Black Magic line. The chance at a price, I think, near the top of the line is General A-Rod. I think there are some possibilities with exotics with the 7 Kid Cruise based on what the track profile is like. I don't see any reason not to use the other horse out of the other colt out of the Derby, Ride on Curlin in trifectas and superfectas. So short and to the point there. I hope you enjoyed this analysis of the 2014 Preakness Stakes. I would urge you to look at the undercards, not only at Pimlico, but at the other racing around the country, because there is a lot of amateur money in the pools. And the mistakes that they make are the same kind of mistakes that the normal racing crowd makes, but it's exacerbated by the just sheer volume of money. And that, everyone say, oh, well, this favorite can't lose. And, they make really some bad favorites. So you can catch some horses that maybe on a weekday and you're playing at Presque Isle Downs that you might see at, 5 to 2, you might be able to get a beautiful $16 horse and such on a big day such as Preakness Stakes Day. Thank you for listening. Thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts with you about the Preakness Stakes. Thank you so much for your support and encouragement. And until next time, this is Michael Pizzolla saying, be well, enjoy this great game of ours, and let the bet make you. I'll talk to you soon.